What lay behind our joint love of shadows and marvels was no doubt the ancient, mouldering, and subtly fearsome town in which we live. Witch-cursed, legend-haunted Arkham, whose huddled, sagging bramble roofs and crumbling Georgian balustrades brood out the centuries beside the darkly muttering Miskatonic. This quote, written by H.P. Lovecraft in his novel The Thing on the Doorstep, describes a city plagued with misfortune and chaos. One that has gathered the mythos of horrible entities of fiction and fact. This city is the city of Arkham. However, compare this image with that of a mental hospital. The bright white sterilization, the padded walls, the straitjackets, the wheelchairs, the sedatives, and the freakish cleanliness of the building. Now, what would happen if these two entities collided? You would get is the first in a trilogy of Batman games created by Rocksteady Studios and published by Square Enix. The game breathes fresh life into the franchise, with the Batman games preceding it taking a much more lighthearted and whimsical tone to how they portrayed the Caped Crusader and his adventures. According to Ron Fish, the game's external composer, from the very first cinematic, he could tell how dark the game would be. The team was reported to really trying to push the gothic elements of the game, most likely inspired by the Burton Schumacher films of the 90s, which are known for their outstanding, larger-than-life environments and terrible ice puns.
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age!
The level of detail that Rocksteady went into about the game's art design went down to looking at the Eastern European influences that would have been in Gotham due to it being an East Coast city. A large part of the environment is the grungy, rustic look of the asylum's medical facilities. This really gives the game a feeling of uncertainty around every corner. Another aspect of the design is the claustrophobic environment of the long, winding corridors. This truly elevates the game in my opinion, making the larger-than-life character that is the Batman really feel unsafe in this environment. The asylum itself also has the feel that its inmates, which have come and gone over the years, have impacted the asylum and left their own imprint on the titular madhouse. Suffice to say, Rocksteady had their work cut out for them, succeeding the most popular Batman game at the time, Lego Batman. With the studio promising to make the game feel as though you were the Batman, the marvellous Mark Hamill, Arlene Sorkin, and the late Kevin Conroy reprised their roles from the critically acclaimed Batman the Animated Series. When picking inmates that would inhabit the asylum, Rocksteady strived towards finding a balance between fan service and realistic limitations. These limitations that Rocksteady had set for themselves was that they wanted a villain that they believed would challenge the Batman psychology, the Scarecrow over the death of Bruce's parents, the Riddler to push the mental power of the world's greatest detective to the brink, and of course the prolific Joker to challenge Batman's innate need to see the good in people, no matter how far gone they truly are. Of course, the most seen, or rather heard from person outside the asylum, is Barbara Gordon in her Oracle persona. Oracle acts equivalent to Iron Man's Jarvis in this game. She gives intel on where your next objective is. It's not until Arkham Knight, when we actually meet her, that we realise why she hasn't been here all this time. According to Andy Coombs, the lead character artist, his team would spend anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks just working on a major character. Expectations were high. Taking about 21 months to complete, writer of Batman the Animated Series Paul Dini was brought in to help with the story. The combat of the game was reportedly the hardest to develop, apparently going through 3 iterations. Fun fact, the original design for the combat was a rhythm action game, something Parappa the Rapper would shamelessly steal 13 years earlier. When deciding how best to make Batman deal with armed enemies, the original idea was to have a stealth mechanic, but the team felt this would make the Batman feel weak, so eventually it was changed to the Silent Predator sections, where you can pick off enemies one by one while they slowly lose their minds, frantically and erratically searching for you, all for you to sneak up behind them as they scream in terror before encasing a batarang where the sun don't shine. The feeling is just completely unmatched. The game also contains no loading screens, something which in hindsight doesn't sound too impressive, as most games today don't have loading screens, but for 2009 this was quite a big deal. When designing Batman himself, the team wanted to take a little something from every interpretation of Batman.
So even though it doesn't look a lot like Bob Kane, you might see a little bit of, a hint or a throwback to him. It isn't solely the Wildstorm look. There's a little bit of Neil Adams in there. There's a little bit of Frank Miller. We just wanted to get something that gave the coolest visual interpretation of Batman and his enemies.
Another aspect of Batman's design was when he got into a major encounter, like say a Killer Croc or something like that. The cape would be damaged to reflect the player's journey throughout the story. The animation for the game was a mix of mocap animation and handmade animation, and for a game where I genuinely can't tell which is which, that's quite impressive for 2009, considering the fact that Yakuza 3 came out the very same year.
Oh my god, bro.
Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck?
The team used mocap for a more realistic and fluid experience. For example, when Harley Quinn was being animated, they had to call in a gymnast to do real flips and jumps to be scanned onto the model. The sound design of the game was again very tailored to making Batman feel as gritty and real as possible for the first half of the game. The intention was to make the player feel as unsure about their surroundings as possible and where the story might be headed. This was accomplished through sound design. The simplest thing like a light buzzing or even the rain can make people feel very uneasy about what their situation is. The soundtrack of the game was also another important factor to the team, with their ambition being to make the best score for a Batman game ever. Originally, the idea wasn't to compose like Zimmer or Elfman, but to use the genre of contemporary classical music to match the Victorian Gothic art style. With all of these incredible features, you would think the team would be working around the clock to deliver the perfect Batman experience. And you'd be right, because they were literally working around the clock to make this game. Rocksteady had two teams working on the game, one in the UK and one in America, so when the America team finished a piece of the game, the UK team would be able to immediately pick it up. The build-up to the release saw some downloadable content be announced, such as the Joker being a playable character, in addition to a plethora of challenge maps. As well as this, there was a competition to have a fan's face scanned onto an inmate at Arkham. The winner of this is Luke Oliver. I hope you are happy with your immortal portrait, Luke, because Jesus Christ, it looks horrible. God, it's hideous. Upon release, Batman Arkham Asylum was a smash hit, receiving the Guinness World Record for the most critically acclaimed superhero game ever, until the record was beaten 3 years later by the sequel game Batman Arkham City. The game received an average Metacritic score of 91.67. Edge magazine said it was, by some distance, the best superhero game of modern times. IGN's Greg Miller called it the greatest comic book game of all time. The love for this game was real and well deserved. Many players compared it to BioShock for its world immersion, The Legend of Zelda for its adventuring style, Metroid for its world layout, and Resident Evil for its action-adventure style. The game also has several anti-piracy measures, being that Batman will be unable to glide at certain points, unable to grapple, and randomly grapple out of bounds and checkpointing to softlock you. ClownPuncher139 on YouTube has discovered a way to beat the game without gliding, so technically it is possible to beat a pirated copy of the game. The game sold nearly 2 million units in its first 3 weeks of sale. The PS3 version of the game had outsold the Xbox 360 version by approximately 10,000 units, despite multi-platform titles typically selling better on the Xbox at the time. This was probably due to the fact that PS3 users would have access to playing as the Joker in challenge mode, where the Xbox 360 players did not have this opportunity. By October 2011, the game had sold 4.3 million copies worldwide. Needless to say, this game was kind of a big deal. The story of the game relates similarly to the graphic novel Arkham Asylum: A Serious House on Serious Earth, written by Grant Morrison, in which the patients of Arkham Asylum, led by the Joker, have taken over the facility. The Joker forces Batman into a game of hide-and-seek where the Caped Crusader is hunted down by Clayface, Dr. Destiny, Scarecrow, Mad Hatter, Maxie Zeus, and Killer Croc, as well as many other villainous foes. This game looks absolutely stunning for its time, with this being a 2009 game. The graphics and art style are still visual eye candy. The gothic influences really are a treat to see, which we don't often get to see very much of in the comics and movies. Just look at the botanical gardens. It's so goddamn beautiful. Also, the character bios have this just incredibly detailed art of some obscure-ass villains. Like, have you ever heard of the Great White Shark, an investment banker turned mob boss who handles all his crime from inside the asylum? Or Tweedledee and Tweedledum, crime bosses that look so identical to each other that they're often mistaken for twins despite being cousins. The collector's edition of this game comes with a leather-bound journal containing the art, and it just looks fucking sick in person. Along with this, the collector's edition bundle includes a life-size model of a Batarang and the behind-the-scenes documentary disc. Also, the game has Predator stealth sections where you have to quietly disperse a room of thugs without getting caught. Of course, you can get caught and finish the section, but something about hearing the criminals lose their shit over seeing their co-workers picked off one by one is just so fun to me. I think the gameplay in this is incredible, and still holds up 14 years later, even if the other games copy and paste this format. But hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The game starts with a classic scene we've all seen 100 times before. Batman driving the Joker to Arkham Asylum for some random act of terrorism he's committed today. Batman has a feeling that the Joker is up to some deviousness and tomfoolery, so chooses to escort him to the asylum. All is well until Harley Quinn hijacks the security systems and breaks Joker out of his restraints with the aid of Sergeant Mitchell Shepard. Joker mentions that he has been busy planting bombs around the city, revealing that he will detonate the bombs if anyone enters the asylum. You're on your own. You against the hordes of psychopathic murderers in the asylum. Well, no. Commissioner Gordon is still here and has been kidnapped by the previously mentioned evil Scarman. You track a tobacco sample from Gordon, which you find at this sick-ass looking Batmobile. This leads you to the medical facility, where we are tasked with saving Dr. Penelope Young from a group of armed thugs. After that, we take the elevator down to the lower levels, at which point we get an appearance from my all-time favourite Batman villain. That's right, Dr. Jonathan Crane, the motherfucking Scarecrow. And trust me, when I get the time, I will make a video on this absolute gem of a comic book villain. Just you wait. Back to the game, Scarecrow has warped our vision to a Dutch angle. Dutch angles are a filmmaking technique used to make the viewer feel uncomfortable and disoriented, and is used really effectively here. At the end of a long hallway, we find Gordon's lifeless body before heading into the morgue. Making our way into the morgue, we can see 3 body bags. Inside the first 2 is Thomas and Martha Wayne, the parents of Bruce Wayne. Scarecrow is toying with the guilt Batman has over his parents' death, and it won't be the last time he does this. Inside the third body bag, we get a surprise jump scare from Scarecrow, and then we are taken into a nightmare realm where Scarecrow is king. We have to avoid his gaze by crouching around walls, reducing Batman to almost a coward's tactic. We grab a spotlight which seems to do the job in killing him. Upon leaving the morgue, it turns out the body we once thought was Gordon's was actually just a random Arkham guard. Making our way to a Joker-marked door, we can find Gordon, kidnapped by Harley Quinn. We do a bit of sneaking around before completely doming Harley Quinn through a roof and rescuing Gordon. I should also mention that the intercom in the medical facility tells us about the website ArkhamCare.com, a website that, now defunct, had the details about the asylum and its treatments. As well as this, in the medical facility you can find the severed head of a scrapped enemy of the game called the Straight Jacket Henchman, now resting in the jar. Upon rescuing Gordon, he mentions a greenhouse with someone inside. Upon checking it out, it's notorious Batman villain Bane. He has been experimented on by Dr. Penelope Young. She has been using Bane to try and reverse engineer a drug from Venom, the drug that Bane uses to get all buff and shit, for a medicinal purpose. Joker activates the Venom and we see the Bane we all know, the grotesque, drug-addicted murder man. For an enemy so fearsome, the boss fight is pretty easy. Basically, you wait for Bane to charge and hit him with a Batarang. This disorients him and allows you to grab a tube off of his back and rip it off, with the occasional goon round thrown in. These goon rounds are something you will become all too familiar with by the end of this video. And with that, the boss fight is done. However, Bane won't go down that easily and follows us to the surface to end us, but like a deer in headlights is struck into the sea with the Batmobile and millions of Bruce Wayne's dollars just bubble down below the sea, going to meet the Ocean Gate sub or something. After Bane gets absolutely spearheaded into the ocean, we help Gordon onto a boat and he leaves the island. Now finally, we are alone. Us versus the hordes of maniacal murderers. Next we head to the Batcave to gear up, at which point we unlock the Batclaw. This can be used to grab boxes to gain access to other areas, an ability that is used here and one other time in the game, which certainly warrants a spot in our weapon wheel. The Batclaw is actually mainly used for grappling off vents and launching enemies into the Eternal Abyss. We learn that Joker has been anonymously funding the Venom program led by Dr. Penelope Young, which just makes me wonder, how do you possibly get millions of dollars of funds from just some anonymous gigachad and not even question it? Then again, with all that money lying around, Joker would not want the IRS barking up his ass.
I'm crazy enough to take on Batman, but the IRS? No, thank you.
Anyway, we now know that Dr. Young is at Arkham Manor, and so we make our way through the sewers.
Find you, rip your flesh like paper.
Through the sewers to get to Arkham Manor. Leaving the sewers, we can get to the front of the manor before being halted by some snipers on top of the doorway. However, these can easily be taken out by ledge takedowns. Inside the mansion, we have to search for Dr. Young's research notes on the Titan drug before Joker can get to them. Also, side note, in Dr. Young's office, there is a body with the name Ra's al Ghul on it. After completing a riddle where scanning his body is the answer, his body is missing. This is hinting to the fact that Ra's has used his infamous Lazarus Pit to revive himself. Through the vents, we can find a cell with cryptic circles on the walls. Just hold on to that right now, because it's going to be important later. Upon leaving the library, the hallway becomes long and winding as the camera shifts almost like it was on a ship. The further down the hallway we get, the more it shifts to become more and more like an alleyway. But not just any alley, this is Crime Alley. The alleyway where Bruce Wayne's parents were killed in. At the end, we find Bruce's parents' bodies lying on the cold ground as flashes of lightning change us between Batman and a young orphan Bruce. By now you should have realised that this is yet another Scarecrow encounter, preying on the guilt that Bruce feels over his parents' murder. After another similar Scarecrow encounter, our delusions of grandeur have led us to the clock tower. The bell of the clock tower has the date the 1st of April 1922. This is the date on which Amadeus Arkham killed the criminal Mad Dog in Arkham Asylum: A Serious House on Serious Earth, the graphic novel that the game Arkham Asylum is based off of. Mad Dog is later mentioned in a riddle, another homage to the graphic novel. In the warden's office, Victor Zsasz has taken Dr. Young hostage, but he can be taken out by a simple batarang. Dr. Young takes us to a safe, where she has her notes. Joker and Harley have destroyed the notes and taken Warden Quincy Sharp to the penitentiary, and so we have to get him back, because it is the right thing to do. Also, in the warden's office, if you spray 3 explosive gels on a wall, you unlock a secret room with blueprints and concept art for the sequel game Arkham City. I think this is a really neat touch thrown in by the developers to hype up their next game. Some next level marketing right here. Or, except it would be, except that no one in the original game before Arkham City came out ever found this room. It was so well hidden and you would have never thought to put the explosive gel there that nobody found it, and only when the remaster came out, Rocksteady actually told people about it. Wow, could you have guessed? Another DNA trail. Holy, how original. We find Poison Ivy on the Green Mile, which, nice, and Aaron Cash in a cell in the same room as the Warden. If we inspect the Warden even further, we see he has no bones. This, and his transformation into Aaron Cash, shows us clearly that he is Clayface. Harley lets Ivy out of her cell, and you get the cryptographic sequencer, which means those annoying ass electricity gates, a thing of the past. We follow Harley into a room where we beat the shit out of some of her goons, while she swings on a light like she's the Flying Graysons or something. After this, she pisses off and hangs 2 guards upside down, and you have to save one. But the trap is so incredibly hard, you would have to be an r/atheism member to solve it. We follow her for the last time to her boss fight, if you can even call it that. It's just the first section, but there's an electric floor. And just hold on to this segment because it will become the worst part of the entire game later on. You'll never guess what happens next. Another goddamn DNA trail. Anyway, this one leads us to Botanical Gardens, as Harley Quinn has escaped and fucked off to Botanical Gardens. But hey, the Joker's here, and he's got Dr. Young's files. After destroying the generator to pass through the electrified water, we scale an abandoned chamber to get to the aviary. In the aviary, there are a few doctors who have been trapped in cages, with one of the henchmen in charge of dropping them to their death if they spot Batman. In this stealth section, you have to take out all the henchmen without being spotted, which can be quite a pain in the ass, but once you get the general path down, it's pretty easy. After saving the doctors, we have to hack a security panel, which when destroyed, shows us a hidden lab being used by the Joker. Inside this room, Joker has injected the experimental Titan drug into 2 of his henchmen, turning them into the same grotesque monster that suffered the heart attack earlier in the game. This boss fight is very similar to Bane's, except we have to take on 2 Titans instead of the 1, with the occasional horde of henchmen eventually dropping in. After the fight, we call in the Batwing to deliver us the line launcher. This can help us escape the room as Joker has destroyed the bridge before the boss fight. The line launcher makes travelling the island so much easier, because as long as there is a solid wall directly in front of you, you can grapple to it, which I believe is faster than running. And it looks far cooler in comparison. After leaving the room, we go to enlist the help of Poison Ivy to create an antidote for the Titan drug, but while leaving Botanical Gardens, Ivy starts sprouting tendrils all over the building. Suspicious. Also, when leaving, we see these grotesque pods, and going to Arkham Manor, there's these huge towering plants. Yeah, I don't think Ivy's very trustworthy. Nevertheless, we go back inside intensive treatment to get the spores for the cure. Getting through another stealth section... Oh, shit. Fuck. My game crashed. Give me a minute. The game starts with Joker driving Batman to Arkham Asylum, after which he follows him into the asylum and... Wait, what the fuck? Yep, that game crash was entirely scripted. The third and final Scarecrow encounter, he intentionally crashes your game before restarting the game with the rules reversed. This was a revolutionary concept back in 2009. On par with Psycho Mantis reading your games library in Metal Gear Solid.
You like Castlevania, don't you? You enjoy role-playing games.
However, this effect doesn't hold up incredibly strong today, as games don't tend to crash this way anymore on modern-gen consoles. But for a 2009 audience, this was quite a real threat, and I'm sure soiled the britches of many a small child in its day. Also, at the end of the role reversal, the Joker shoots us, with the death tip being to move the middle stick to avoid the Joker. There of course being no middle stick on an Xbox 360 or PS3 controller. But joke's on you game, I'm playing with an N64 controller, ha 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 ha! Oh. After the fake crash, we do one final stealth mission before fully overcoming the wrath of the Scarecrow. After that, he threatens to flood Gotham in his fear toxin, foreshadowing in its most ominous form. Scarecrow takes the elevator down to Killer Croc's lair, which is basically just a gigantic sewer. Scarecrow threatens to put his fear toxin in the water supply, possibly not noticing Killer Croc behind him. This leads us to the boss fight with Killer Croc, which involves you walking around his cell to get the spores while Killer Croc can jump out and run towards you. However, like most things in this game, he can be taken out with a single batarang. Be careful not to run during this, or else he'll reach up and pull you down into the depths. Later in the fight, he can pull down the boards you're walking on, which means you have to use the line launcher to maneuver around the lair. Upon being chased out of the lair Temple Run style, you have to use explosive gel at the right time to send Killer Croc to his presumed death. After the fight, we have to head back to the Batcave to get the antidote to the Titan drug. Upon arriving, we can get the Ultra Batclaw, which allows us to pull vents off of walls, pull down walls, and send some enemies into the Shadow Realm. Surprise, surprise, Poison Ivy wants to destroy the island. You know, I always thought there was something a little bit untrustworthy about her. Heading back to Botanical Gardens, Joker reveals that he's going to poison Gotham's water supply with the Titan drug, and now we must shut off the valves, which for some reason are located at the mental hospital of the city. After a few beat-em-up sections, we shut off the 3 pumps and go to leave, only to be confronted by a Titan henchman that we have to take down. Now normally this section would be really hard, as the onslaught of Joker henchmen would be really challenging, if only for the fact that you can ride on the back of the Titan henchman every 3rd health point, which basically means Joker's henchmen are a non-threat. This section actually allowed me to get the achievement for max combo. That's how much riding on the back of the Titan can help you. After Joker's little water hoax, we can go back to Botanical Gardens to actually stop Ivy from destroying the entire island, which this leads to the hardest boss fight in the entire game, in my opinion. Ivy gets into this giant Venus flytrap looking creature to attack us from. Her first attack is shooting her giant tendrils into the dirt to create these types of vines, which absolutely lie about their hitbox. Her second attack is shooting these little energy balls that her pods outside use, and in between phases she throws her little henchmen down to fuck with us while dealing with her bullshittery, which eventually caused me to die 600 times. Anyway, Batman sprays some explosive gel on her and says fuck climate preservation.
How dare you!
As he blows up the giant plant and Poison Ivy is sucked to the bowels of hell. Grappling out of the collapsing Botanical Gardens, we see Joker has lit some fireworks directing us to the Visitor Center, where you could go multiple times throughout the game to hear little anecdotes of Joker, which is Mark Hamill just absolutely chewing the scenery. Also, outside the Visitor Center, we could see Joker's henchmen gradually build up this Joker face during the game. It's details like that which make me respect the fuck out of this game. Outside the Visitor Center, we have henchmen greeting us to Joker's party. On the hallway leading to the actual center, we can see lines of henchmen cheering us on, which you can actually beat up for the achievement Party Pooper. Again, Rocksteady rewards us for playing unconventionally and thinking outside the box. Inside the Visitor Center, Joker wears a TV on his head, something Pyrocynical would shamelessly steal 9 years later. How brave. We follow Joker into a room with a throne of mannequins like the Iron Throne of Human Anatomy, which is actually a reference to this panel in The Killing Joke, which South Park parodied in their episode 201. He sends in 2 Titan henchmen, and we basically do the Double Trouble achievement from the aviary with the henchmen from the Botanical Guards section. After defeating the henchmen, Joker threatens to shoot Commissioner Gordon with the Titan Serum. However, Batman rushes to take the bullet for him at the last second. Seeing this, Joker realizes
this is where the fun begins,
and shoots himself with the Titan Serum, no doubt expecting an all-out Titan fight between him and Batman, like he's the Abomination and Hulk in that one time Fight Club joined the MCU. This leads us to the long-awaited Joker boss fight. With a design so monstrous and grotesque such as this, you know this is going to be an absolute banger. However, the boss fight is kind of mid. It's just kind of mid, honestly. Which makes no sense to me, because the Poison Ivy boss fight we just had was so well designed, I have no idea how they managed to mess up the final boss so badly. Joker just comes down and barely makes an attempt to hit us before jumping up and sending henchmen in. The henchmen are actually the true MVP of this fight, especially the ones with guns or stun rods. They had me resetting so many times. They actually deserve a promotion. We then play what is effectively the world's most boring game of tag I have ever seen, and then hand this brother's ass straight to him on a silver platter. After pulling Joker down and delivering the final blow on him, Batman uses the antidote on himself instead of Joker, a decision which I'm sure will not bite him in the ass the next game. The GCPD then raid the island and apprehend its inhabitants, and Batman flies back to Gotham, and all is well and all is right with the world. Until a last minute jump scare! Yes, the game has 3 endings. Killer Croc grabbing the Titan crate, showing that he's not dead, Bane grabbing the Titan crate, foreshadowing his addiction in Origins, or Scarecrow grabbing it, showing that he's alive and ready to begin preparation for his return in Arkham Knight. Now that's not you finished on the island. Oh no, you silly Billy. There's one green-clad villain I neglected to mention in this entire video. Kite Man, hell yeah, woo! Nah, it's the Riddler. You see, the Arkham games are infamous for their Riddler trophies, collectibles of numerous amounts in each Arkham game, and this first outing is no different, with each actual riddle giving you the beautiful pieces of artwork in the character descriptions mentioned earlier. Reward you get for beating all of the riddles in the game is hearing the smug-ass Riddler being dragged away by the GCPD as Batman deciphers his location and uploads it to them. Ultimately, it's a pretty underwhelming reward for collecting over 200 trophies, but I think the art in the character bios is reward in itself. Still, it would have been nice to get something else. As well as the riddles, the game has these cryptic chronicles of Arkham, called the Spirit of Arkham, deranged readings of the founder of the Arkham Asylum, Amadeus Arkham, narrated by the brilliant Tom Kane, most known for his role as Master Yoda in the Clone Wars and Dr. Loomis in Halloween H2O, alongside Busta Rhymes. At the end of the Chronicles of Arkham, it is revealed that Warden Quincy Sharp is the spirit of Arkham, and pleads Batman to continue his work and give Gotham a true savior. Something that points to this game taking place fairly early in Batman's career as the Caped Crusader. As well as this, the game has a number of interview tapes for multiple characters, these being Joker, Riddler, Killer Croc, Scarecrow, Zsasz, and Poison Ivy. These tapes provide insight into the minds of the game's villains, and is a really neat form of world building in my opinion. A fun Easter egg can be found in the tapes of the Scarecrow. The doctors mentioned in these tapes are Dr. Murphy and Dr. Combs, in reference to Cillian Murphy, who played Scarecrow in the film Batman Begins, and Jeffrey Combs, who played Scarecrow in the new Batman Adventures and played Dr. Herbert West in my favourite horror movie, 1985's Reanimator. And remember Reanimator, because something Reanimator themed might be coming up on this channel in October, so keep an eye out. But you didn't hear it from me. As well as this, the developers of the game have their faces in photos and the newspaper articles, which is something just really interesting, I think. Finally, the game has also one more trick up its sleeve. In order to get all of the achievements, you must go through Challenge Mode. Challenge Mode is a collection of sections from the game recontextualized. The Predator maps are the same Predator sections from the game, but you must complete 3 specific challenges to get the 3 stars, and the achievement. For example, knock out a henchman with a sonic batarang, line launch through a window, and kick a henchman, and kill 3 henchmen with 3 separate exploding walls. The other challenges are combat challenges, where you must beat up enemies while keeping an incredibly, insanely high, almost impossible to maintain combo, while never getting hit, while using all of your gadgets, and if you stop attacking an enemy for 1 second you lose your combo. As you can tell, I don't really like these sections very much. Remember the Harley Quinn boss fight? Well, that section has been made into a combat section, which gives you 30 seconds to beat it. 30 seconds! I don't like these sections, and they're basically my only complaint about the game. They're way too hard for no reason, and currently the only thing from stopping me getting a platinum on this game. Now, to end this, as of writing 17-page, 5,468 word essay, I'd like to leave you with the thoughts of Grant Morrison, the writer of Arkham Asylum, A Serious House on Serious Earth, the graphic novel which inspired this absolute gem of a game. When writing the Batman Incorporated comic, they said they wanted to capture the feeling of Batman Arkham Asylum. When I played that game, it was the first time in my life where I actually felt what it is like to be Batman. We are now the heroes, and we can look through their eyes.